Start my timer. And Miss Lori.
Good morning or good afternoon, whichever the case may be for you. My name is Lori Ware, and I have the incredible privilege of serving as the CEO of Strong Communities. And so we're delighted you're with us today. This is a really momentous occasion for us. Joe has been a part of Sherry Strong, the Chief Operating Officer and my business partner. She's been a part of Sherry's life for some time now, and I had the privilege of meeting Joe not even a year ago. That's almost hard to believe. And you know, when you meet someone who's been studying strengths for 15 years plus, it truly is a privilege. And so I continue to learn from Joe, and we could not be any more excited about Joe leading our Unique Genius in 33. And so we celebrate you, Joe. We celebrate your unique genius, and we are so excited about the effect that this is going to have on people practically applying their strengths. So thank you. Sherry's traveling today and is not able to be with us on video, but she is listening. So on behalf of Sherry, thank you, Joe, and welcome.
Thank you. I am super excited to have been connected to you through Miss Sherry, and I cannot tell you just how much of a dream this is to be a part of the Strong Communities mission and vision and what I can do to participate and help spread the message. I think we're going to have a lot of fun doing these shows. I'm really looking forward to people tuning in and us growing our audience as we get going. I'd love to let people know that, please, if you have a question, feel free to throw it up in the chat. We'll do our best to get to it. If you have a question either for me or for Kim, what you're going to notice, who's our guest today, what you're going to notice, just to give you a little housekeeping, you're going to notice that we're going to go through some questions today, and we really want to look at practical strengths, right? We want to look at what strengths look like at their best, and we're going to look at a little bit of what they don't look like, but we want to think about real life, everyday types of situations. We're not, just talking about high level applications. We're talking about in the home, in school, with your family, with your friends, how this looks like in what you do every day. And so with that in mind, I would love to get started and let you see our guest today, Miss Kim C. Kim, if you would just introduce yourself, let us know your top 5 talents. And when you hear her number 1, you'll know exactly what we're talking about today. And just give us a little bit about what you do as well, so we have some context for who you are.
Sure. Thanks for having me today. I'm Kim C. I live in Greenback, Tennessee, which is just outside of Knoxville, north of Chattanooga. So I'm right in the 75 corridor. My top 5, just to cut to the chase, is achiever, strategic, intellection, relator, and learner. So right now my work is in the hot rod business because I own a car restoration company with my husband.
Great. Well, that sounds fascinating. Can't wait to hear a little bit more about that. So as you all heard, her number 1 is achiever. And I'm going to have to move out of my little full screen for a second because I did not write this piece down, so forgive me. We're going to get the kinks worked out after this first one. Let me move over here. So what I want to talk to you guys today about is we're going to talk about achiever. And achiever is, according to Gallup, people exceptionally talented in the achiever theme work hard and possess a great deal of stamina. They take immense satisfaction in being busy and productive. And so to celebrate having achiever, you are goal-driven. This is a great thing. And you probably make a lot of lists. And if it wasn't on the list, but you did it, you might add it on later just to cross it off. And you're a hard worker, you're very diligent, and you are going to get things done. So Kim, what do you think? Does that sound a bit like you?
That pretty much nails me to a T.
Fantastic, fantastic. And then we're going to look at evaluate. And evaluate is, are you becoming a workaholic? Are you expecting the same intensity from others? Are you forgetting about self-care? Or are you maybe adding too many things to your list to actually get them done? So how does that sound to you, Kim?
Always a challenging topic in my household is the workaholic topic for sure. And yes, I do add things to the list. And yes, I do forget my vitamins on the way out of the house and freak out a bit because I forgot to take care of myself. So, okay, again, you nailed that one, Joe.
Well, and I think anybody that has Achiever is going to be able to relate to that with you. So fantastic. So I'd sent you a few questions ahead of time, and this is what I'm going to do with anyone that we have on here, because I want to give you a little time to think about it. But the first thing I want to know is, what do you love about your Achiever?
Well, in light of how you described an achiever and pretty much that is who I am in a nutshell, the top one is achiever, folks. So I like really driving tasks. I really like accomplishing tasks against goals, especially if there's a timeline. So that really feeds my profession of being a project manager, and why every time I go into an assessment or a profiling of myself, it says, nope, you're in the right line of work. That's what you're supposed to be doing. So, how I get myself into these other roles that I'm in is a completely different session.
Right.
Goal task oriented, and making sure there's achievement against that so that we can move to the next level is really what I'm about, and what I love about what I bring to the table when I'm working with companies or working with my husband.
Great. So what drives you crazy about your Achiever?
The same thing.
The same thing? It is often the same thing. What happens, what kind of triggers happen that it flips a coin or flips a side for you?
When there's an interruption and when they're at the end of the day, in a nutshell, if there's one thing left on that list, it makes me crazy. It's something where I've got to get up and go take care of it, or how can I knock that one out, or because I don't want to think about fitting it into the next day. It has to get done for that day to feel like it was complete and I have closure.
Right. And just out of curiosity, Achiever, do you have a chance to prioritize? So if there is something down at the end that you feel okay letting it go to the next day, or is it just if it's on the list, it's got to get done?
If it's on the list, I'm looking at it in terms of, did I bite off more than I could chew there? Was that just an ambitious task versus something that had to get achieved? Then I start to compartmentalize. Well, this really goes into this bucket over here. And when can I get to that bucket? So it's a constant flow of organizing, which, it's a detriment when you're trying to be spontaneous and you're trying to go and do things and have fun and put it down on a Saturday. But there it is, it's the list is in my head. Where could I fit that in and run in and get that done for work on Monday? Or so that's the thing that is my pet peeve about the achiever in me.
Right. And I bet there's a lot of people with Achiever out there that can probably relate to that. I know other people that I've talked to and worked with, there's always this sense of impending have to get it done, get it on the list. And it even follows through to the weekends, right? And maybe even making lists for other people and wanting to get things done.
Well, it's this overwhelming sense of disappointment that I didn't get that totally completed. And what if something wedges its way in there and I don't get it done? That's something that it's a tragedy. So that is my pet peeve about it, which I am constantly working on, saying it's okay, it's okay.
Right. Okay, so I have to ask you this question, and relates to the crazy one for just a second, because I have a really good friend whose number one is Achiever. And I've got to admit, Achiever is really low for me. So this is not something that keeps me up at night. But she'll ask me to do something. And not a big deal. Can you move that over there? And I'll go, yeah, I'll get to it in just a minute. And I'm kind of hanging and doing it. And if I haven't done it in 5 minutes, she just does it. And I'm like,
right.
I really was going to get there. So do you do that too?
Right. I do. And it's not to be pushy or anything. It's just that it's in my line of thinking and I want to get it done. And what's the big deal? Can't you just do it right now? My husband is constantly like, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, but you're not doing it. And it's imperative to my peace at the moment that it get done now. So I'll get up and, help him out.
Right. Yeah, I was just wondering if that was, because always our talents work together, right, in combinations, and she also has competition, so there could be a little bit of that going there too. So, but yeah, I think that's just an achiever thing. If it's got to get done, it's got to get done, right?
Yeah, there's an overwhelming sense of order that it has to get done here because I'm sort of in a path and I don't want to redo my steps and I don't want to, I'm maximizing my steps, and otherwise I will feel like a lunatic running around my house getting things done or at the office. And I have to have it in order because the topics could be related, and that way it's on my way out and boom, it's done. It's, we're talking about it. It's over. And if somebody's, sort of like, I'll get to it because I'm busy doing something else. Well, we just talked about it. Why is it not as important to you as it is to me to get that done?
Right.
So it is a give and take, and it's something partially my relator comes into play and says, let it go, let it go. The achiever in me can be frustrated, but the relator is going to be like, Kim, it's okay.
This isn't the battle to fight, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm not solving religious wars or anything like that. So yeah.
Anna, did you have a question? You're on mute. Here, I'll unmute you.
Achiever is dead last for me, so. But if you need someone to do something, do you find it gets achieved if you give them a deadline? As opposed to just
always. It's better when it's structured with an expectation so that I can check in on it. And if it's an imperative, then absolutely it has to get done now because it's going to hold up something that is either kicking off or we missed, right? So would really like to get that over with so that we can move on to the next thing that was expected if we're trying to fit in an unexpected task. So yes, I do work at being very specific about when something has to get done, so that there's a mutual expectation, or somebody can say, I can't get that done. You're going to have to find somebody else or do it yourself. So it's like, okay, great. At least the communication's flowing. And 99.9% of why achievers are the way they are is we like to be over communicated to and with. So that's one of the things that I really need is somebody to say yes or no or stop and go, and it's always flowing so that it's not getting messed up or misconstrued that I'm overreaching when I'm trying to get something done for the betterment of the whole.
Oh, I think that's awesome advice, Kim. I think that's really great that's one of those communication needs, right, that achiever has, is that, and we talked a little bit about this too. So before I get back to that question, I love this point that you brought up. So that communication piece is also a little bit that people with, especially just executing strengths in general, right, and achievers within the executing domain are people who really are very bullet point oriented, very straight to the point, get to the point, don't need, they need the information, but they don't need an entire story around the information they need, right?
Right. We put things together very quickly and we get the picture, we get the point, and then our other strengths will come into play to work with that information. Right. So it's not a lot of talking that needs to happen. It's just, like you said, succinctly bullet points. I write in bullet points. I just find people respond better. And I also try to keep things to the top 3. Here are the top 3 things I need to happen. Right. And they are in a specific order. So let's talk about how that's going to get done, right? Do I have to take one off the plate? Do I have to do it myself? How are we could we tag team it? Could we get creative with how it gets done so it gets done, So the imperative is it gets done.
Right.
But
so how does this work with your husband? Does your husband talk the same way, or how does this work with you guys?
No, my husband doesn't talk the same way, and my husband is like, you just told me not to tell you a lot of stuff. So, and I said, but you told me a lot of stuff. Now I'm really frustrated. Now I'm, So we work a lot on, I didn't ask you to help me because I'm not presenting a problem. I'm just asking you to listen. So we
Right.
are both down that path of, no, this isn't something for you to fix. This is something for you to just listen about. And then
Right.
I have to say, afterward, I have to say, okay, and how can I help you? Is another tool that I use to say, okay, you have to invite me in to help you. And he does have to invite me in to clean the garage because I won't do it. It's just gone horribly wrong in the past. And
Right.
I have to be invited in because then he's giving me control to do that. And we don't fight of where I put things. But mostly it's about, fixing or feeling that deadline of having to get that off of somebody's plate for them when they're talking to me. And then it's, no, it's not a problem. I just need you to listen. So that's how we
Right.
work it out from home.
And I think that's a great tool. So I want to reiterate that too. I think that's a great point that you put up, is finding those tools, those questions, or those statements that you can use to help you understand, right? If your husband is one to generally give more information and talk, which tends to be a trait of relationship builders in many cases, is something that they like the stories, they like to bond, they like the words. And then there's other people like executing and influencing to some degree, which I'm high in influencing, are much more get to the point, yes, no questions. And so when you can say, how may I help you? May I help you? But as opposed to just assuming and sort of storming in, right? So having those little triggers that help us ourselves, reminders, for managing that. So I think that's
Right.
a great point that you've brought up. All right, so here's my favorite question, I think, of almost all the questions I ask, is when do you remember Achiever showing up the first time for you? What is the earliest memories you have around Achiever?
So when I was a kid, just having that feeling of when I was in school working, side by side with my friends, and we're in class, and you'd be brought up. I mean, this is first grade memory, being brought up, to get a star on your paper. And I was never the first one, and it drove me nuts because I strove to be first done. My cursive had to be in the right way, and I worked really hard. And then one of my friends would be up there and she'd get the gold star and I'd get the green frog or whatever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it used to just tick me off. I'm like, but I got it done first, and I got it done. It's just as good, in my opinion, my humble opinion. I'm
Right.
6, but this is where, I really needed, it just kept driving me to be more thorough, right? More lists. Don't forget, because somebody else out there might, to have it faster, better, cheaper, or whatever, right?
Sure.
So it's just sort of that thing that is now stored in my subconscious. So when in doing this, thank you for bringing that all back up for me. I appreciate it.
I don't know if I should apologize or say you're welcome. So
Apparently it's something that still has to heal.
Still a bit of a wound.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I'd love to bring that up because for some people who are trying to get used to understanding strengths, that might sound a little bit like competition to others, that need to be first and that need to get it done. But I think really, if I'm listening to you, as much as it is about first, it's really about getting it done and doing it well and being able to move on. It wasn't 100% a comparison thing, but it was just that desire to get things done and, and hopefully be first and move on with it. Like your learner was ready for the next challenge.
Right. And it's a drive. And it's a drive. And I mean, I have to go back to a conversation I had with my mother who told me, you were walking at 8 months, you were talking, you were making your bed at 3. I mean, it was all about having this order, before I left my room, I mean, but I do see therein lies the rub, is that, my house has to be a certain way before I leave the house so that when I get back, it's just all fine. So it's really a task oriented, goal oriented still.
Sure.
And getting up there first was a goal for me, and getting that gold star and making sure that, every once in a while she knew she wasn't just the only kid in the class getting a gold star. So, so that's kind of a couple of in the house, out of the house examples, right?
Love it.
For me.
So for those of us who don't have Achiever High, what would you like for us to know about you? What would you like for people to know about Achiever or people with achieving?
So this may cross over a couple of my top 5, but the biggest thing is, you know, don't ask me to dream about something and then not expect me to do something about it. Okay.
Okay.
Or make that dream come true. Don't think that I'm just going to be, you know, okay, that's a great idea, and then forget about it. I'm like, that's a great idea. What can we do to make that happen? Let's go make that happen. You know, here are all the tasks that I can see that we could do that were low hanging fruit. Knock those out, and then boom, we can go make that happen. You know,
I love that.
that's probably the biggest thing, is that we're always in motion in our heads, and most people are, no matter what their top 5 or top number 1 is, they're pretty much always in motion about it. But that's mine, and that's why it drives my husband kind of nuts, because I'll start like 50 businesses, you know, and he'll be like, well, which one are you really going to do, you know? And yeah, but it seems so easy because I can see the vision, I can see the goals, I can see what has to happen to get to the goal. And so a lot of that is important to me, and it's a dreaming part, but it's also a very task-oriented, goal-oriented part. So when my husband says, you know, I want to quit my job and I want to start a company doing hot rods when he's in high tech, I go, okay, let's go. You know, let's make that happen.
Right.
So as an achiever, you want to accomplish, and you want to have something tangible from that, you know, and satisfying.
Right. And when we were talking before, just let everyone know, we have a little conversation before so we can get to know each other. And one of the things you had mentioned to me, I thought was really important, was when you were talking to me about how you work on projects and how you see things and sort of that process you have, which we can really see your intellection and learner kind of playing into that achiever process. Can you walk us through that a little bit? Well,
it really goes back to, you know, putting things together quickly and being able to see when as a project manager and dealing with multi-million-dollar projects that I normally have done over the course of my career, there are a lot of constituencies, there's a lot of data, you got to put it together, you got to see how it all relates, and then you have to have enough, you know, experience and enough communication skills to gently tell them that, you know, it isn't going to work. You've got to toss some things out, you know, in order to achieve the core goal of all of it. So in the team environment for me is very important, because I drive teams, you know, highly effective and fruitful teams for big companies, and that's how you save money. That's how you are, you know, more or less on time. If you've got a little bit of a time swag, that's no big deal if it's going to save money in the long run. So, and I also roll up my sleeves. I'm not a person who just delegates the work. I have to have my own personal deliverables in order to have that satisfaction. So while I love leading teams and driving teams, but within the team, I am also them. I'm delivering too.
Right.
You know,
you're gonna roll your sleeves up and get dirty right along with them, right? Or you're not gonna feel satisfied.
That's right. That's right. I have to have my own lists. I have to have my own deliverables and my own deadlines. Correct.
Excellent. Yeah. Oh, I think that's fantastic. All right. So if you were to think of somebody with achiever, either famous or someone you know, who is someone that you think exemplifies achiever as you understand it?
So when I was looking at this question, because yes, when you guys are doing this and participating and being interviewed, Joe will send you the questions ahead of time. And I answered it really quickly because it is something that, it is a person that, in my opinion, has achieved so much in business and in his own life that as an achiever I admire, and that's Jack Welch, in terms of the way he took on GE and he tried to take a very old, stagnant company and change the culture and shift the mindsets and really spin that into, you know, what the bottom line could be in the satisfaction of the employees, right? Being there. You have so many people that don't want to be in the jobs that they're in because they feel like I'm doing the wrong job, or it's not my skill sets, or this just got dumped on me as an activity which belongs in a different department, but they silently suffer. And when somebody comes in and says, no, we want you to fit into the right job, and kind of takes that culture and flips it upside down where those opportunities start to present themselves, you can't help but admire the fortitude that it takes to do that. And the fact that he presented a 4,000% increase to the bottom line was pretty amazing because he changed the culture. That's how I view his contribution to business and to the lives of, hundreds of thousands of employees that work for that company. So that was right off the bat one of the names that came to mind. And I look at it in a whole, right? Not in just one area that he succeeded, but in how he was impacting the work culture and allowing people to get reassigned and reassign themselves to the right job, to the right fit, in order to maximize that business and profitability. Because when employees are happy, the company's happy. So
I think that's a great example. I think that's a great example of someone who's really and really represents, I think, your achiever from everything that you've told us today, right? So that person who was willing to get in there and also do the hard work and stick with it. And it wasn't just about leading from the top and looking down. It was about leading, within the team, right?
Right. So, that there's a vision, and how do we take this from just a stagnant, drudged, out company that's over 100 years old? How do you take that and just transform it into something else? And that's what I like as being a change agent, is that vision of being able to take that culture and make it be better for everybody working there. And they can start feeling that that work-life balance is there for them, and they're doing what they're supposed to do because they're maximizing their strengths. Right. So it all comes full circle.
So we're coming up at about 5 minutes left of our magical 33 minutes that we have with you, Kim. And so a question that I still want to ask, and this is something I want to hear from everyone, is what do you think someone should know about strengths that maybe hasn't taken the assessment yet, maybe doesn't know it? What's one thing you would love to share with people about what strengths has done for you?
So the biggest thing with strengths is really allowing yourself to celebrate exactly what you guys are trying to do, is celebrate not just the top 5, but the top, but the whole breadth of who you are, and letting yourself see those areas work together, you know what I mean, to make you be the best person you can be in your life and in your work environment. I was telling Joe earlier that we spend most of the time of our day with people that we don't live with. So communication is critical. So if you feel like, your top strength isn't something that is a relator, you've got to find, it's probably somewhere in there, and you have to find a way to elevate that and weave it in so that you feel heard, you feel important, you feel like the skills that you're bringing to your daily life are valued by others. And if they're not, how do you constructively communicate that, right? I mean, achievers can be bulldozers. I know that. And over the course of my life, I've had that conversation with people, but you're so confident in how you present it. Well, yeah, because I think I'm right. And I have to temper that with, yes, I hear what you're saying, and I'm not, let's find different ways of making that happen together. But when people are afraid of doing that, they won't find their communicator within. And strengths really does help you find the communication of all of those strengths and how you do something and how you get through your day and what you need. And that's important to be connected to personally, and it's important for the people around you to understand that's who you are, and you really can't change that because you're always going to go to those default 5, and
Yeah.
and it's great. It's great. They love hearing. The more you know about yourself, the better you can communicate, the more they love to learn about you and keep
Right.
you around and have you around. And that's a great circle to keep that circle moving so that you have that satisfaction in your
Yeah.
day.
I love that you brought up the communication point, because that's one of the things that I love a great deal about Strengths. And, I joke with people a lot of times when they ask me how many languages I speak, because for those who don't know, I live in Lima, Peru. I say I speak English, I speak Spanish, and I speak Strengths. And I say that because for me, so many assessments tell us things about ourselves. There's DISC, there's Myers-Briggs, there's a lot of things out there that can tell us those things about ourselves. But Strengths actually gives us the words to really understand that and share it and express it with others. And that's, for me, what I think sets it apart. I always said when I discovered my talents back in 2003, when I discovered my strengths, it was like I got a user's manual for myself. That it was like all these things that I already knew, but I had no idea how to explain to anybody else. All of a sudden I go, oh, now I can tell you why I do that. Now I can tell you. Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
That
That you know about it now.
That still gives me chicken skin. That still gives me goosebumps really thinking of it. Chicken skin is the Spanish way to say that. That was such the English translation of the Spanish way.
That's okay.
Chicken skin. We say chicken skin here, just in case you're wondering. So yeah, no, I really love that. Well, I just want to say we have just about a minute left. If anybody has some questions, if you'd like to throw them in the chat and grab a question for Kim really quickly, we'd love to invite you to do that. And I would also just like to say thank you so much, Kim, for being a part of our very first show and allowing us to work out maybe whatever little kinks we have with you. I certainly appreciate it. If you are interested in participating in one of these, we'd love to hear from you too. We are looking to talk to real people, real folks that have these talents and are learning about them and really learning to embrace them. So if you want to join us, let Sherry know. Let myself know, and we'd love to see if we can fit you in. And we've got just a few minutes left. Let me see if anybody has popped anything up in the chat real quick. Nope, we've got a quiet group today. So, whoops, Anna, looks like Anna has one quick question. I'll unmute you, Anna.
Thank you. It was going to take me too long to type it. So, Kim, how do you handle asking someone to deliver what you've asked them to if they are your boss or someone that you have no influence over?
Great question.
Okay, first of all, achievers always feel like they have some influence over whoever they're working with, or not so much over, but with those people. I work with people, and people that work, for me technically, I work with them. And if you talk to any of the people that I've reported to in the past, they would say that they work for me because we work together. And if I need something from my boss and I can't get it out of them, I'm like, okay, do I need to give you a head start on this to kind of get you rolling? How can I help this happen, or do I need to go, why can't I get this out of you? And what's tripping us up here? Okay. Right. Because it's a deliverable or it's something that I need and I'm dependent on. And if it's just an answer, a yes or no, once I get that answer, I'll go running with it. I don't ask them to block and tackle. Right. I won't do that. I usually do all the block and tackling. So always find an achiever that you're working with to help you and coach you on kind of how to get that going with and it's not a threatening conversation with a manager, or I worked for vice president's executive team. So it really is just hey, you're a person, I'm a person. Help me understand.
Right.
Okay.
I think that's great advice. Thank you. That was a great question, and I appreciate it. We're just a little bit over our time, but I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today. I'd like to invite Lori to say a couple of words if she'd like to as we wrap this up. I also want to remind everyone, if you haven't found it yet, we do have an Alexa flash briefing now. We just started that on February 1st. If you're having trouble finding it, jump in the group, ask us where it is, but you can also look, I'll try to throw it in the chat, but if you use the short link alexaguy.com/strengths, you should find it directly. It'll go right to our Amazon link and just enable your Alexa either on your phone or your actual Echo at home. And I just want to thank you all so much for being a part of our first show. Lori, last words for you, my dear.
Last words, just thank you, Joe. Beautiful job. Kim, we so appreciate you being our inaugural guest, and what incredible insights you offered on Achiever. And Joe, thank you for exploring them in the way that you did. And to each of you who showed up today, we appreciate you so much. And I just want to encourage you to come every week, you know, and the recordings will be available as well. But invest in yourself in this way, and invest in yourself through StrengthsGenius.coach. There's lots of wonderful resources out there for you. Thank you all so much for being a part of the Strong Communities movement. We appreciate you with all our hearts. Y'all have an awesome day.
Right. Let's go start building those strong communities together. Thank you, Lori.
Absolutely.
See everyone next week. Same time, same channel. Bye.
Ciao for now.